Violet. Violet. Pinkish violet. Beautiful soft. Ooh. My God. To see so, I mean, man. Beautiful pinkish and soft yellows. Right at the edge. Right at the edge. Check it out. It's like yellowish. And that's blue. Watching here. Over here with this.
But little by little it became apparent that however sort of virile and front-like he looked, he was actually a very nice, lost young man. George was obviously rather reticent with the whip. So little by little, Francis became disabused because George had been in that sense, a disappointment.
He was a kind of very feeble East End thug, and he liked children and animals and cuddling. They said, oh, I hate the feeling and chewing of sex, just like the sex. And he wanted George to rape him, and George wanted to kill.
Francis confided just about everything to his relationship with George, and it seemed that the sexual relationship had a real downturn. George was suffering from erectile dysfunction. It seems to me that Francis had emasculated George. He found what he saw as the typical rough East Ender that he longed to find, and then he did that job of emasculating him.
Francis did his best to make George out into something, and I think he did that on purpose.
Bacon was violent in the way he painted, but he was sadistic in the way he took apart George, with missing ears, missing jaws, missing eyes, missing everything, really. Rich people standing around, sort of, this smart gallery. And he said to me, I think they're really horrible. He said, I look like that.
Okay. I think I have
and he said, and these people go and pay fucking thousands of pounds for it.
Okay, let me see something.
I mean, he's the kind of idiot. He has things with what looks almost like a nappy on his head or something, and dressed as a baby. I mean, need I say more?
There were certainly moments when things were firing up between them. They had lovers' tips. One time when Francis phoned me and said, you have to come around right away because George has gone berserk and all my suits are in the bath and he's poured paint all over them and he's
I hate when I look for something and I don't find it.
And I couldn't
What is
get
this?
in because
Shit,
front
that's
door
not
was
supposed
busted.
to be
So
there.
I had to back the vehicle up, get up onto the roof and go through the window where I was nearly throttled by George until he realised who it was. And he had in fact thrown.
Dyer is fighting in a way that he's going downhill. It must have been terrible to watch. So it's almost like a desperate attempt to get back in with Bacon and show Bacon that he is still there.
Francis was painting fewer pictures of George. Weary of his problems, of his drinking, of his carousing, his unhappiness.
His judge told him he needed to be shot to die.
Bacon began moving away from George. He looked more to Paris at a time when the other British artists were resolutely not looking to Paris. I think that Bacon's interest in France goes all the way back to 1928 on his first trip there.
Paris a eu une grande importance pour lui, je crois. Paris, souvent, c'était bon. On allait restaurant, boîte de nuit, ça faisait. On a rencontré là, il voulait absolument le connaître, Andy Warhol. Tous les peintres et écrivains allaient là-bas.
In 1971, getting a show at the Grand Palais was the great moment of his life. It was the turning point.
Huge, the first English artist to be offered the Grand Palais. So really, really big time.
It's very important this went well. I understand the Dutch embassy were very worried in case a typical Bacon scene erupted and it was something terrible happened there.
George, Francis, myself, Miss Beston all had rooms in this particular hotel.
Everybody else was saying, don't bring George, he'll ruin everything. Dickie Dennis and some others with Francis had gone. And they saw the venue and there was a big red carpet and there were the soldiers standing there. And they all described to me these leather boots up to the knees and the red stripe up soldiers, tight trousers, and they were fairly taken by this. And they said Francis was, you could see him with pride at this. And they went back to the hotel thinking, this is going to be a good evening. And Francis went up to his room. There was drugs, unwashed bodies, dirty sex, and the rent boy, the very dirty rent boy who was in there with George. And Francis was furious. Dickie Dennis and Francis, they went drinking, they went gambling, they had a
Is there any videos here?
Andy, a Canadian government spokesman said that your art could not be described as original sculpture. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Why do you agree?
Well, because it's not original.
You have just been copied, a common item.
Yes.
Well, why have you bothered to do that? Why not create something new?
Because it's easier to do.
So isn't this sort of a joke thing that you're playing on the public?
It's the most American of art. And the most artistic of Americans. So American.
What are we doing here?
In the middle of ourselves, and in the middle of Warhol. Because he was us. In all earnestness, ambition, and insecurity. A hard-working Democrat, a churchgoer and businessman, a social climber, empire builder, and inveterate consumer. In Warhol, the simplicity of a typical American citizen and the simplicity of artistic genius are so intermingled that we cannot assume nor properly credit either his Americanness or his genius. Dave Hickey.
I think he's a touchstone of the culture, and I mean more than painting, art history. I think he's a touchstone of the culture we live in, a touchstone for the entire culture of post-war. Most important artist of the second half of the 20th century, maybe the most important artist of the 20th century. If we need to find a visual form to just distill what it's like to have been alive in the last 50 years, anyway, it would come somewhere from the corpus of
There is no way that anybody who is much younger than I am could understand how profoundly different the world before Andy and after Andy looked. You know, a supermarket before Andy looked one way, a supermarket after Andy looked another way. He literally changed the world. You know, and you change the world by changing people look at the priorities that they place on it. And so he changed the world. And the cultural consequences of that are really profound.
He wanted it so much to be successful. He didn't want to be second rate or an underling.
Right.
And he didn't want to be first class or top rate either.
So I got
He wanted to be a superstar. He wanted to do a big movie that would eclipse everything. That's all he could settle for, if he was going to have any happiness in life.
I got
And
that.
it did happen, but
I got
the
the
impact
degree.
overall was what was important. And he would be willing to live an ordinary life as a person if he could have the experience of doing this.
I had some smoke.
And it's not showing everybody that I'm important type stuff. It's like Zeus found the lightning bolt. It's being able to throw the lightning bolt. Not being Zeus, but being someone who has the character like that. Was the only thing that would satisfy him.
I think the reason why he has such staying power and isn't a proper
I could do the.
so complex.
I need some type of red.
That was never God's to really.
And I'm gonna make a little blush.
I think his greatest gift was immediacy, making you see in an unmediated way, just right there.
That way. What the hell is going on with the damn lights?
Because he had them in feel
I have another
and a
palette.
grasp that was unique. In addition to that, curiously enough, despite the sort of okay, that I never had an idea, I'm just Andy, I would say that Andy was one of the very impressive artists of ideas. His art always suggests something about life that can be formulated in philosophy. And I think he knew that.
It's just a quick abstract.
Got the force of personality by withdrawing into his shyness and his personality. So he got the force of ideas, drawing from the active assertion of ideas.
Abstract. And, oh, then I'll use this.
It's called Blonde and a Bum Trip. What's it about?
It's about a naive young lady.
Oh, I love that. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Look at the other still. Oh, wow. There you go.
I think that's the big narrative of it. And he's like,
Where is Where are you? Disappearing. Wanted to capture. I'll capture part of it. I'll build it up in parts. Okay. There's another part over here. That's it right there.
it's the big narrative. And he's
Look at
like,
this.
From the very start, he was not one of those people. Artist should be born on the eve of the Great Depression, a child of
Look at
enormous
this.
transformation and
My
change.
God.
At once fiercely afflicted,
Oh, there goes the panic.
in some ways, as America itself finished coming of age in the decades following the Second World War, as one of the greatest transformations in the history of modern culture.
Okay.
The world has strong.
he was
Put this here for now.
ethnic Polish with a bad nose and sanctified his dancing blotches, etc. Who was
Make
gay
it
and
come.
really swish and had a freaky mother and was bad with people, was probably dyslexic, a little autistic, maybe had Asperger's syndrome or one of those things is. Yeah, and it would be really nice to become
This here a little
monotone,
bit.
and art let him do
Oh,
that.
little soft pinks.
It's hard to go from further down to further up in contemporary culture.
What's the matter?
I
What?
think the thing about Andy, and a lot of people in America who rise to the top
Are you?
and become very famous, is
Who is
that
that?
Andy had no idea of bourgeois life.
Bourgeois.
They never saw it. He never, but that's, I think, what he imagined. You know, I mean, that was the goal, was like normal life. Never anything normal about from the first to the last. You know, he's in the ghetto, he's hanging out with life.
Get a good.
He's taking nude pictures of track queens.
you know, being shot back down. Well, there's the fact that he was this poor boy from an immigrant family, from a very deprived immigrant family. His father had died when he was young, working against every disability who was carried to very considerable success on the strength of his talent alone. That's in itself very interesting. We say it should happen a lot.
Yeah,
It doesn't always happen, but it happened to him.
I could do it. I could do it there.
Everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. By the 60s, he became one of the most influential artists of his day. Described by some as a genius with his work in
I mean, Andy understood that democracy and commercial culture were inextricable, I think. I mean, Andy's primary transgression, his primary gift, is that he was okay with commerce. And by just saying, yes, that's what I do, you know, world changes.
This way.
In 3 astonishing years, at the dawn of the 1960s, Andy Warhol would turn the art world upside down and take American culture by storm. Radically revising the meaning of art and our sense of what a painting could be.
People are so
he would
ugly
take the idea
now.
of art in the age of mechanical reproduction to its logical extreme, permanently breaching the wall dividing fine art and commerce. He would force us to confront and re-envision the world we live in, permanently transforming the way we see the world around us. Along the way, he would transform himself, rising from the humblest of backgrounds to become the most famous and famously controversial artist of his generation. At once fulfilling the promise of the American
if I do that,
and at the same time redefining it, reinventing it, and
if I
calling it
do
into
that,
question.
if I come over it,
There's no way
it
to
takes.
really plumb Andy's instinctive selfishness.
Yeah, I think what I'll do, I'll grab it this way,
But in order to do
and you
that,
want right there,
you know, there's no end.
and then this will be dark.
That I know
You'll see that and white, just so I can look like I'm
issued this sort of
I'll put the shape in.
permission that
I'll put them in the
really
background.
fleeing America from World War II, in my mind, I mean, it really marks the beginning of the post-war period. Andy's idea that we all should be on TV, that we all should be famous for 15 minutes. All of this is just outrageous. You know what I mean? I mean, it is anti-elitist in the extreme. But it's also, you know, a new world. You know, I mean, there probably was a new world. All of a sudden you could see the idea that America could come together. You know what I mean?
I think that Warhol's desire to film everything,
That's some
or to
black.
keep everything,
This
or
is the black?
redact, or reduce everything to some kind of artistic embodiment was a form of
Oh,
transubstantiation.
here it goes.
And I think his philosophy of art and his life was to take a possibly chaotic reality and pass it through the looking glass of some medium. And ideally subject those raw data to as little manipulation as possible.
Just to get an idea more or less what I'm looking at.
Or not even use one's hand to essentially silkscreen reality and make it new. And I think all of it was to search for different media, movies, books, paintings, sculpture, performance, was an attempt to play again and again this trick of transubstantiating garbage and making it valuable.
It is a fascinating fact that Andy was one of the visual artists, one of the great visual artists of his period, who dreamt of going to Hollywood. At one point he thought of renaming the factory Hollywood. At the same time, he was an artist with, among his many talents, couldn't
I'm gonna try.
talent for narrative. He couldn't tell a story. Didn't know anything about telling a story. So here's an artist with zero talent for narrative, whose life
Maybe if I open it.
is like a novel.
If I
It's completely coherent. His story was one of the things that was most compelling about it. But people got and understood about him right away. Even though his genius was for immediacy and for absolute refusal to tell a story. Just, this is it, nothing more, nothing before, nothing after. was a novel. And everything about it had a kind of strange and powerful coherence. I think that he was an artist dealing with immediacy, intensity, vividness, power of connection, and the threat to all that comes with death. And that was a powerful narrative force in his life. He lived it whether he wanted to or not.
I'm gonna build this up.
I think the reason is that Andy's really attuned to some very large issues, despite his famous superficiality. And one of the things is that immediacy, especially in the great traditions of the Romantic movement, is always on the edge of death somewhere. Because we're always losing the moment. It's always vanishing. It's like Faust going, endless going. Was something that Andy was really a genius about. What time is, and all I can think is, time is, time was. Andy Warhol.
And his background, like everything else about him, was
It's
so odd and so vague.
still
It came from nowhere, insofar as there is nowhere in Europe.
I might just get rid of
People were
this.
incredibly poor, and they had this faith. I think again, the faith kept them going. I mean, they had no money. They left the area as soon as they possibly could because there was so little work and so much poverty.
His parents were from part of Central Europe called Rubinia, which is on the borders of what is now the Ukraine, Poland.
It's like you have to search for it. It's there. I just have to bring it
United
out.
States, they lived in the Slavic ghettos, but as one of Andy's brothers said to me, we didn't really know what we were. We knew we weren't Polacks, we weren't Hungarians, they were Hungarians. We spoke this language called Slavish.
Can I have some?
Basically, Andy grew up in something that looked like, it felt like, and acted like a simple European ghetto, completely surrounded by America. You know, I mean, that is, if you, physically, that's the same. And if everybody's talking Slovak and everybody is living in village ways, and then you're totally surrounded by all this iconography and everything.
If I could just leave them in black. I can leave them in black. Leave the characters in red in the background. Thank you. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. How I keep from going under.
John Shell was always he's like naturally on it. It's like, don't push me because I'm close.
Push through the I'm trying.
It's like thank you doing it. He didn't think that much about it while he was doing it. And there was a real raw immediacy to him.
I tried to get away, but I couldn't get
And every time I saw him, he had something in his hand, drawing, or talking about what he was going to do. And, he just went out and did it.
To lose my going under.
Yeah, you're sexy. You could get a lot of ladies, especially like those sexy art ladies. Everybody's like,
Bastards. I'll see what happens, but the character actually gets. Okay. Close to. Kill these flesh tones.
Knowing, looking right through you. He wanted success. I know for a fact he wanted to be famous.
He wanted people to live
See the edge, not to lose my head.
Jean-Michel Basquiat died of the consequences of drug habit. He paid for his drugs by selling paintings for up to $50,000 a canvas. Since he died in 1988, his paintings have increased in value tenfold. There's something mythic about the story of Jean-Michel Basquiat. There's the myth of the suffering artist, of someone whose inner torment is so intense that he eventually destroys himself, like Van Gogh or Jackson Pollock. There's the rock star myth of someone who achieves wealth and fame so rapidly and so young that he can't survive his successes. He destroys himself
It's
with
search.
self-indulgence, like Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. Ghettos,
I
poor
could.
schools. The truth emerges
I could
that his
do.
father was an accountant from the Haitian middle class. Jean-Michel grew up in a Brooklyn brownstone and went to smart schools. His Puerto Rican mother took him on trips to galleries and museums. But another truth emerges, that Jean-Michel was a profoundly unhappy child who felt himself damaged by the violent breakup of his parents' marriage. There was continuous hostility between him and his father, Gerard Basquiat, and he spent all his short life in conflict with parental authority.
I want to talk more about that period that you said was the worst period of your life. Do you mind talking about it? Was the time when you were on the street and living in the park?
Yeah, because I was, again, I was really naive person, and I just left home and didn't even think about how I was going to eat or anything.
Why'd you leave? You just said, I can't stand this anymore.
I was smoking pot in my room. My father came in and he stabbed me in the ass with a knife. And then, I thought I'd better go before he killed me,
And how old were you?
About 15.
I wonder how I keep from going under. Sometimes it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
When I first left, I got into this boys' home. That was mostly criminals and stuff. And then I went out with these guys, and they mugged somebody, and I was with them, and then that didn't seem to be the right thing. And then I left the boys' home, and I was living in the park. Can't handle it. Drinking wine with one. I really don't know how I got through that. Just walking around for days and days without sleeping, eating cheese doodles or whatever, or just,
And what were you thinking about then? I mean, what was like your vision of...
It's not funny to me. Because I only 15 cents, that's why.
My son says, Daddy, I don't want to go to school because the teacher's a jerk.
Everybody's rich. That's what you think. You think everybody's rich, no matter who they are. You see people in a restaurant, you're like, oh, those fucking rich people. Yeah, they stay home for $3. I could, make myself a dinner. You see those
And
guys.
I used to do that too. Look at them people in the restaurants, the rich people. Like, why the fuck can I be in there?
I was determined not to go home again.
Oh shit.
But did you think I could be a bum forever?
Yeah, sure I did, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh shit, I hope I didn't fucking sell myself. I hope so.
After months of school life, Jean-Michel did return home and added one final school called Longville.
John had many lives going on when he was in high school. John was stoned. John used drugs in high school. John was hustling in high school. I mean, it was one of the many faces of John. One day it's a little kid, and the next day he's telling us, we're hearing stories about John on the street